Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. I'm still here. Nothing happened to me. Just been a bit busy with school and family and everything else. I did take some time to make a couple short 10-minute segments for the Red Star Report. So if you want to go over to Red Star Report, you can watch those segments over there. And I think I'm also going to be able to have them on this channel as well. So those might be some future episodes for the podcast as well. I'm recording this on Saturday, October 29th. So we are exactly 10 days out from Election Day. And just wanted to go over kind of my thoughts about what's going on and take a step back and look at the big picture. As I've said many times before, there's a lot of day-to-day things that you can get caught up with in the news, the headlines, somebody says something on Twitter, or there's some current event that everybody's discussing. And it can be kind of easy to get lost in the trees and not see the forest. So let's talk a little bit about, especially the past couple weeks, the past month, the past couple weeks, and then even the past few days. Yesterday morning, we saw the husband of Nancy Pelosi violently attacked in his home. Now, I'm no fan of Nancy Pelosi, but this really has nothing to do with Nancy Pelosi. This is something that a lot of us have been expecting, dreading for a while. We've been talking about how the right wing has been normalizing political violence in this country, how they've been encouraging stochastic terrorism. And so something like this was going to happen. It was just a matter of when. And so it has happened now. I think it's reasonable to call this an assassination attempt. And it's not just against Nancy Pelosi's husband, because the intruder who came into the house was actually looking for Nancy Pelosi. So I guess he didn't realize that she was in Washington, D.C. Wasn't very well planned out attack, but nevertheless, it was an assassination attempt on the Speaker of the House of Representatives, who, might remind everybody, is second in line behind the Vice President in the line of succession. So this has come home to us here. This is what our new normal is. This is what we're living with. And we need to think about what this means. And we need to think about how legitimate this system is. And hopefully this event yesterday will cause a lot of people to think. Let's talk about the election that's coming up. Will these be free and fair elections? I know that there is a lot of criticism of the right because they don't accept elections, but it's an honest question to raise whether we in California should accept these federal elections as free and fair. Let me paint a picture for you. Let's suppose that I was talking about another country, somewhere else. I don't know. Just imagine your favorite area of the world. And in this country, I said that there was very anti-democratic institutions. The electoral process had been kind of rigged in a way that disenfranchised different groups of people based on representation, how maps were organized. That the judicial system had been kind of packed ideologically through various legal and somewhat extra-legal norm-breaking means, and that the head of the country, the head of state, was elected not by the popular vote. In fact, a couple recent heads of state had not even won the popular vote in the country. That there was an election coming up soon. There was egregious voter suppression happening all across the country. Efforts to minimize people voting, efforts to stop people from voting or make it very difficult for them to vote. And then, even more seriously, there was intimidation, harassment, death threats made to election officials, that this was a real problem, that many of the people that were running elections just decided not to run them, that they would let somebody else do it because they were fearful of their safety. And let's say that we had even start to see intimidation at the voting booths. So let's say that paramilitary groups, militias armed with guns, were showing up to voting places, the places where people cast their ballots, and just standing outside and just, standing there with guns in their hand while people were voting. So voters themselves were definitely being intimidated, harassed, and threatened. And then finally, suppose that I told you that there was a whole range of individuals who were running for office in this country who didn't accept the previous result and were explicitly running on a platform of only certifying elections when their chosen candidate or party won. And if they didn't win, then they would just ignore that and do whatever they wanted and certify who they thought should win. So put all that together, okay, the anti-democratic institutions, the gerrymandering, the popular vote winners not winning, the harassment, intimidation, and threatening of election officials, the paramilitary organizations showing up outside with guns to intimidate voters, the voter suppression laws, the attempts to minimize people voting, and finally, elected officials or people running to run elections who are explicitly saying they're not going to accept results. If I told you all that, and I said this was some country somewhere else, what would your reaction be? Would you say, wow, the people in that country have a right not to accept the results of that election? That doesn't sound like free and fair elections to me. That's kind of what it sounds like to me. Everything I just told you is what's happening in the United States right now. Everything. So the question that I would pose to people is, why should we accept the results? At least at the federal level. I mean, I think our state elections in California are pretty clean. I think we should accept those. But why should we accept the governance of the federal government? Why should we accept being governed by a federal government whose elections are obviously not free and fair, whose elections are obviously corrupted by all of these problems? Why should we submit to this? Why should we have to live with the decisions that these people make when they were not chosen in a fair way? That's a question I want everybody to think about. Now, I don't know how the election is going to turn out. I gave up trying to predict precisely what's going to happen in America a while ago. But one thing I can say is it's going to be a shit show, one way or the other. There will be many, many candidates who will not accept the result, who will not concede. That is guaranteed. On election night and into the few days after, the week after, expect what we saw in 2020, even more. So to an even greater degree. So expect to see in multiple states across the country, in many different areas with many different races, people assembling outside of ballot counting centers, harassing election workers, harassing the people who count ballots. Expect a whole range of conspiracy theories. Every kind of conspiracy theory you can think of is going to come up. Expect, I would say, dozens of candidates to refuse to concede. I don't think that's a stretch. And yeah, it's just going to be a mess, regardless of the results. And again, I'm not going to predict like who's going to take the House or who's going to take the Senate. But I am scheduled to have a conversation with Jeremy Zogby again next Tuesday, so exactly a week before the election. And interested to talk to him because, you know, he's somebody who has a different perspective and is, I think, in touch with a part of the country that I'm not really familiar with, that a lot of us are not familiar with. And I want to kind of pick his brain about, there's some questions that I want to ask him, not ideological questions, but just questions about perception and belief and those types of things going on in the country. So hopefully I will get that out maybe by the end of next week, in time before the election. So look forward to that. All right. Talk to you all later, and I hope everybody has a great Halloween.